everyone, and welcome to the Jeff Bullis Show. Today I have with me Charlie Bales IV. Now, we're going to discover why he's called Charlie Bales IV, but it's a thing they do in America, isn't it, Charlie? And I think it even happened in England, but it's sort of like you end up getting a number after your name. I'm Jeff Bullis I. You're Charlie Bales IV. So I think you've already won. So it's really cool.
Oh, tell me what I win. I'd love to know.
A free carton of beer. That's what you get. Okay. Oh, no, you won't get that because you've already got that beer. All right. So just a bit about Charlie. Charlie is a fourth generation entrepreneur. His great-great-grandfather started the business in 1936, and there's a great story to why it started in 1936. And we're going to discover a bit about the history of the company, where it is today in a fast-changing landscape. I think with the pandemic, sales could have gone increased, I would suggest. It has in Australia. So we're going to have a chat about what it's like to be a fourth generation entrepreneur. And then Charlie's got a side hustle we're going to talk about as well. That's what millennials call it. We can also call it a passion project. So we're going to dive into that a little bit and find out what he's doing. And that's about it, really. So welcome to the show, Charlie.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. This is a huge honor and kind of surreal that I get to come on your podcast and talk about things that I love doing.
Well, we look forward to finding out, the story of the company and also where you are today and what we can learn from that. And then we'll have a little look at the side hustle. So, Charlie, how did the company start? ABC Fine Wine and Spirits. Now that is a fantastic name, ABC. Now I'm going to hazard a guess here why it was called ABC is because it would put the company listing in Yellow Pages or the phone book right at the beginning. Is that correct?
Very much so. So there's two reasons really, and that's reason number one. My great grandfather Jack Holloway, who started the company in 1936. In the phone book ABC. There you go. You're number one.
Yeah.
And it also morphed into over the years. So the United States is very peculiar when it comes to regulation and taxation of liquor. So the state has the right and the ability to do whatever they want. And in a lot of states, the ABC store stands for either Alabama Beverage Control, Alcoholic Beverage Control, you name it. So it's just kind of a coincidence that happened too. So many of the people from the northern states that come down to Florida for vacation, they're just used to seeing ABC. And we get that question all the time. It's like, oh, are y'all in my home state of Ohio? No, it's just a coincidence of names at this point. But we've actually kind of rebranded that ABC in the past few years to mean always be celebrating.
Okay.
Because the majority of people who come in our stores are purchasing an adult beverage for a celebration. It's a lot more fun of an industry to work in than selling widgets, but nothing against the widget makers. We just selling booze has a little bit more fun ring to it.
Yeah. So, and it's turned to be quite a successful business because it's $700 million a year revenue turnover. Is that correct?
I don't know if I'm allowed to, speak on that, but how about I just say sure and smile?
Well, I'm just reading the notes sent out by your assistant and going, well, I must be able to reveal this, So
yeah, it's fine. You can Google it and you're gonna find analysts because we're privately held.
Yeah. Okay.
But you're gonna find numbers all over the place, okay. And yeah.
And you've got 1,600 employees, so and we can't reveal that, but maybe it's just a good guess. But anyway, that's good too.
Oh no, we can talk about that. That's a very accurate number.
Okay, cool. So tell us a story about how ABC, always be celebrating. Company started in 1936. Tell us the story, because it's quite a fascinating story.
Sure. So we're, I'll preface it by saying we are a family-owned business. And the Holloway family, there's two families. And Holloway is one of those. And our founder, his name is Jack Holloway. And in 1936 timeframe, about the time that Prohibition ended, he got the idea. He was working in a cigar shop, and he got the idea to go to his boss and say, "Why don't we start selling packaged liquor? Because it just turned legal." It's a great business opportunity. And for lack of a better expression, his boss basically told him that was a horrible idea, and we would never do that. So Jack, being the entrepreneur that he was, went and did it himself. And it's pretty cool because the first location he had was in downtown Orlando, and that landmark is still there. It's a restaurant by the name of Cantina, but it's a well-known fact too. And I got a picture in my office that Jack's first store was the Wall Street Cantina. Which is perfect. Of course, it's now the Wall Street Cantina. And so the business did well, grew, and we're obviously here today in 2021. What is that? 85, almost 86 years later, in the fourth generation that I'm just privileged enough to be a part of.
So, do you remember some of the history regarding? So you got the original Cantina, and we've got a restaurant down the road here called Cantina. So it's got nothing to do with ABC liquor store. But I do go and celebrate there, and they do very, very good daiquiris, and so they do serve good alcohol there as well, which is great. So, but Mexican theme. Anyway, that's by the way. So he started. What were some of the ups and downs from I'm not going to ask for your recollections because you're way too young to remember what happened back then. What were some of the challenges that the company struck? So obviously it came out of Prohibition. In other words, there was an opportunity out of a problem. The problem was Prohibition, and then the whole market opened up. And so what were some of the challenges along the way? Were there fights between family members? Was there challenges? Tell us some of the interesting stories that you've been told that maybe gives us an insight into what it's like to have four generation family businesses, because there's not many of those around, especially privately held.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I'd love to talk about it. And it'll span a lot of years, so it's not just the 1940s or 50s. I'll probably bring you up through the 2000s. So where the Bales side of the family entered the picture is Jack had a daughter. Her name is Jackie Holloway, and she married Charles Bales Jr., who's my grandfather. And he's a Georgia Tech engineer that built the highway system across Florida. And then in the later years of the 50s and 60s, and even 70s, Jack asked him to come work with him and run ABC, because I would say it was explosive growth for the first 30, 40 years. And it was, from all I'm being told, it was typical. Jack and my grandfather went by Charlie, so same name. So Jack and Charlie had a great relationship. They worked well together. They complemented each other, but of course they had those wild and crazy times where they didn't get along, and it's a family business. And and then guess what? The third generation starts coming in the business. That's my dad, my uncle, and they come in about the 70s. They start figuring things out and doing well and getting in powerful position in the 80s. And then in the 90s, when Jack passed away, which my grandfather, Charlie, stepped out of the business in the 80s. But then Jack passed away in the early 90s. So really the torch was kind of passed to the third generation at that point. And we had, at that point 200 corner small liquor stores, because that was our business model, across really just Central Florida, and 100 bars attached to those 200 stores. Where in today's world, we have 126 stores, and we're across all of Florida, from the Panhandle down to Miami, all down the coast. Our average size store is about 10,000 square feet.
Wow.
We have 30 stores that are 2 stories, where the stock room is up top. We have 0 bars. The last bar closed in 2000. So really over the past 30 years, which the first 10 years of that 30, the third generation orchestrated a complete change of business model. And, what I know, of course, there were the great times, there were the bad times, there was a lot of division and a lot of working together. But what got through, or how we got through all of that, and even in today's world, the fourth generation, is everybody understands that the company is more important than each other or any individual. And the executive team we have right now, the third generation, deserves a ton of credit for instilling that into everybody. But it really started with Jack and Charlie Jr. Working together, figuring things out. And that's really what got us through. It's just the company is bigger than any individual or either family. And I think that might be one of the secrets to why we're still around, because the fourth generation all respect that point that was ingrained in us years and years and years ago.
That's really it's really cool to hear, because there's a lot of companies that tear themselves apart. There's a lot of companies where, especially family started companies, where the younger generation is not interested at all, and then it's sold off, broken up. So essentially the founders, and especially the third generation, have instilled this culture. Can you tell us a little bit about how you think that culture was ingrained in you? And because we are used to a world very much where the individual matters more than the tribe. And especially in America, America certainly has personal freedom is treated with, as almost being sacrosanct. So how did that culture, cohesive culture across the family and the business, and of course it would be the employees as well and the executive team, how was that embedded?
That's such a great question. And you're absolutely right that we're almost trained, especially in America, to value individualism. And, we glorify the people that do it themselves and built the empire by themselves. And my opinion, I guess, is that that's just fundamentally flawed. There is 0% chance that ABC would be in business today if it weren't for the teamwork and the collaboration and the respect that the two families have for one another. And that the foundation of that relationship is the company, not personal pride, personal agendas, personal success, money, fame, whatever. And that's what's missing with so many companies that we seem to have, and we have a lot of it, and everybody's bought in on it, and everybody just respects what each other are doing. And I think your question is, where did that come from? How did we get that? And the Jack and Charlie certainly started that, and then the next generation, Chaz, Jess, John, Chad, David, they all embodied that. And it took time. It's not like on day one, they're all kumbaya singing and getting along. It wasn't like that. There were horrible times, but they made it through because they all had the same goal in mind. And they all knew we're trying to do the right thing, which is make the company an amazing place and
mm,
make sure the company survives. Um, and that just naturally got passed on to the fourth generation, which I can speak for me that I didn't come by this viewpoint naturally either. I've been in the business for 12 years. So I'm still young in terms of experience. I'm very green. But the first, couple of years, I was given time to figure things out, and I was coached and developed and trained and mentored. And of course, as a 26-year-old, I'm going to fight a lot of that because 26-year-old thinks you can rule the world. Duh.
mm,
But I was given the time to see that's not the right way.
mm,
The right way is through collaboration and teamwork and just throwing pride out the window. Um, and I think that's been our secret. And I'm thrilled that we've discovered that
mm,
and that we can talk about it because it's not that hard of a concept to grasp.
mm,
That you do the right thing, you take care of each other, and the foundation of your relationship is the success of the company. Maybe maybe the recipe for a multi-generation company is that simple.
excuse me. Um, yeah, it's like you're working towards a common good, and the common good for you guys is the company, and by doing that, everyone wins rather than the ego, which has to subsume itself, and I to that common good. And I think it can be a culture of a country, it can be a culture of an organisation. Um, it's interesting to watch here in Australia is that I think we as a country, with the pandemic going on, we've been able to work together a lot for the common good to keep each other safe. And it's been interesting to watch the different, I suppose, ways in which countries' cultures have either worked or against that. So the ego, personal ego, and I think the cult of individualism is something that's been around for quite a long time now, and it's right through the world. It's in Australia, it's in America, and I, I really think that in our crazy busy world, and I suppose the glorifying of individualism has got, look, there's nothing wrong with it in one sense, but taken to the extreme, it's actually not healthy, because how could you collaborate? How could you work together if it's all about you, or all about me, all about the I, the ego? So is there a mission statement that's as part of that culture? And can you share that with us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Our mission statement is that we make everyday celebrations um, exceptional for our team members and guests. And we put the word team members, we call our employees team members.
Yep.
We put them in front of the guest because we are serving our family first. And I would say that our culture at ABC is one of a family that, it doesn't mean you always get along with your family. It's not all rainbows and unicorns, but it's your family. So regardless of how much you dislike the other person at that given time, it's always rooted in that strong family bond. So we look at our team members as part of that family, and being part of the family that owns the company, I can tell you that we're never going to put our employees, our team members in a position that we wouldn't put our own family in. And that's really the guiding principle that got us through COVID and is still getting us through this crazy pandemic. Because we were deemed an essential business in the US, and I don't know what the state of that in Australia is.
I've just got to love that alcohol stores are treated as essential business. And I as you reflect on it, I think it's really quite fascinating in that maybe it helps us celebrate and numb the pain. Being comfortably numb to get through the pandemic is maybe a good way to think about it. But yeah, we had the same here. Liquor stores were never shut down. So Yeah.
But I can speak to some of the reasoning behind that, because even when we didn't know what was going to happen last March. If we're thinking, are they going to shut us down? Is alcohol really truly essential? But we found out very quickly that it was. So actually, in the state of Pennsylvania shut down their liquor stores, and
Wow.
guess what happened? Everybody in Pennsylvania went to New York, um, Delaware, New Jersey, Virginia, West Virginia, and just went and bought there. Um, and the real danger is if you shut down every um, retail establishment that sells liquor in the States, people are going to get it elsewhere. And most of that product is unregulated. And it's probably going to kill more people than the pandemic is going to kill, which is crazy to think about. But that's what happened in Mexico. You know, they they closed a
That's
lot of
right.
places.
Yep.
People make vodka in their bathtub and they drink it, and 16 people die. So it's just humans are they're very determined. They're going to find a way to get what they want, I think. And that's why I think 49 out of the 50 states, Pennsylvania reopened, just kept it open and deemed it essential. And so that's kind of fascinating when you think about it that way. But I agree with you. It is kind of funny to say liquor is essential. Okay.
Yeah. Which, look, I'm not complaining. I love a good glass of wine and an occasional gin. So like some of the gin distilleries that are popping up here in Australia, and we're not hiring supercharged cars to deliver it secretly in the middle of the night along backcountry roads, because prohibition never hit us here in Australia, thank God. Even though we come from...
You would think that in America we've learned that lesson once. This is the reason why we have the term bootleggers. So luckily we did learn that lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, I discovered this fantastic summer gin, they called it, made in country estate, and had done some gin tastings as well. And because that popped up as well as doing wine tastings, now you have gin tastings, right? So, and I've discovered that gin, look, the gin distilleries sort of take a poke at the vodka distilleries, going, why bother with vodka? There is no taste, so versus gin, which has got the botanicals, right? So, and they're going, what's the point? You might as well drink water. So
it's the same.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, we've done a few gin distilleries, my partner and I, and we're from the north of New South Wales to the country to the city, and doing it with friends. And you discover some very interesting characters who are the creators of these special spirits. And we're not talking spirit world, we're talking spirits, of course. So, but yeah, it's gin is something I've sort of doubled down on the last 2 years, and especially the last 12 months. So it's really interesting about culture, that you talk, going back to culture after a little side trip to distilleries and gin makers. Culture, I've had some fascinating conversations with companies that are designed from the ground up to be for remote work. And these conversations have been absolutely fascinating, because they're trying to create company culture, and some of them are succeeding brilliantly at doing that, even though they're not in the same office, because it's sort of easy to create culture in an office, because you drop by a desk, you chat around the water cooler, you make lunch together in the lunchroom. You drop into someone's office to discuss something that's important that happened the day before, or was happening now, a crisis. Whereas remote work's a little different. You've got to get on a Zoom call. But it's been fascinating to look at the tools and technology and culture that has been created in remote companies. And some of these are a similar sized company to you with 1,300 employees. So GitLab, for example, has been designed from the ground up to be a remote work environment. I don't think they have any offices. Buffer is another one. There is a range of these. And just like you said, part of their culture and the way they use both the tools is to basically make sure that everyone is part of the family, that you are treated as team. You are so they use things like apps that allow people to, gifts to be sent around the world or dispensed from anywhere to in the world, to reward employees, look after them, and and simple things like remembering birthdays, right? And by the way, it's why do I bring that up? It's my birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday! Wow, you were doing a podcast on your birthday. I'm
And
thrilled and honored.
Well, it's great to be 33. Really good. for almost the second time. So actually, I'm 21 about 3 times over, really, but that's okay. But what is really cool, though, is an ex-partner of mine taught me a life skill, which is really important, is that she was bloody good at remembering people's birthdays. And there's tools for that. They're called online calendars that you can put reminders in. So there's really no excuse not to remember someone's birthday. You just got to think they're important enough to put them in, I suppose.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the things you celebrate on your end as a company to make people feel that they're part of the family? And the pandemic, how do you treat, people that are suffering health issues or stress? I'd be interested in what are some of your strategies to ensure that it does feel like a family.
Yeah, that's great. Another great question. I think it's the way that we interact and treat each other. It's just different. Like when we hire somebody from a much larger company. So I'll use an example that we've hired a couple of people lately from Target Corporation, and they are just a massive force to be reckoned with in the States that sells everything. I mean, their stores are the size of 10 football fields. And they'll sell everything from pharmacy to meat to TVs to you name it. And they actually have some liquor stores attached to them. So they're a little bit of a competitor, but a little different market. So when we hire people from these companies, about a week into their job, I normally get some type of call or email or text or something like that, because one of my jobs for ABC is I oversee human resources, HR. So call that the culture department.
Yeah.
These individuals that we hire, they're like, is this really how y'all do work? And I'm like, knowing what they're saying, because I've heard it 25 times now, I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, I've never been so empowered on my job. I've never been so trusted on my job. I've never had so much freedom to be myself and to operate the way that I'd like to operate, and to just be treated like an adult, more or less, instead of micromanaged to the nth degree with standard operating procedures X, Y, and Z. We don't have all that. We of course have our guiding principles. We have I told you, our mission statement, and we have core values. And our core values are respect, inspire, and empower. And those aren't just, fun words that make us sound cool. We live and breathe them. And when we hire somebody new, we're going to give them the respect they deserve. We brought them in to do a job. So we're going to give you the respect to go do it. We're going to empower you to do it. And we're going to let you follow our principles and do it the way you want. And we're going to attempt to inspire each other with our actions and our communications and how we treat each other. And I think that is how we keep our culture very family oriented, family centered, because we do all the things that every other company does. Recognize birthdays, recognize anniversaries. We have the incentive programs. We have great benefits. We have all the things that are just kind of standard now, I call it. But what really sets us apart, I think, are those three core values, and that we actually mean it. It's not just some company saying we value integrity. Well, what in the world does that even mean?
Mm,
You know, I can tell you easily what respect means. Do the right thing. Empower. You're empowered to succeed and to do it your way, as long as it's through a respectful means.
mm,
And we want you to inspire everybody with everything you do. I mean, sales and margin and success, it's just going to be inevitable when you
mm,
do that. So that's what I think the secret sauce might be.
That's fantastic. I think a lot of entrepreneurs can learn from that. And it sounds like, that culture is the glue that's behind, approaching nearly 90 years since you started, and approaching 100 years really. So, and it sounds like you've reinvented your business model as well along the way.
hmm
So yeah, so just finishing off on culture, I think the challenge for remote work is that they've got to rely more on technology and tools to deliver, integrity, inspiration, and empowerment. And I've been blown away by some of the sharing by experts in the field who run remote work management platforms, and they've exploded in terms of their growth. I think gone from 40 people in the last year to 170 people, and there's one example, Liam.
Wow.
So, but to see the pillars that make that succeed is, so what you could do is translating it from a physical world to a virtual world. It can be done, and
Mhm.
but I think what the amazing thing about the remote side is rethinking the organization, and it's important. So, and I think that's a good pivot point for us to maybe talk about. The business model was changed where you no longer have bars, and you move from small corner stores to large, even multi-level liquor stores. So can you tell us a bit about maybe that business model change and what inspired that? That would be interesting, I think, because we never arrive, do we? Whether an individual or whether we are a company, you have to be constantly evolving, otherwise, and because change is going to evolve whether you like it or not. So it could lead to extinction or it could lead to flourishing, either way. So what was some of the motivation behind the reinvention of the business model in, I think, around 2000? I think you mentioned it.
Yeah. So actually, the last bar closed in 2000. The first bar closed in about 92. So over that 8-year period, you saw 100 bars go away. The motivation behind that was actually very simple. We want to create an environment where the female consumer feels comfortable shopping, and where I would be comfortable allowing my wife to go in and shop. She'd be comfortable allowing me to go in and shop, because we look at our business through our family lens. And when you've got packaged liquor stores that are open until 2 a.m. with a bar right next to it that's open until 3 a.m, that's not, the best family environment. So that pivot and that choice to no longer sell hustler magazines and to not let anybody in the store who's not 21 years old. So like we sell, Coke, Pepsi, chips, even tobacco products. You can be 18 and buy those in the States. We will not sell those. Like if you're 20 years old and you walk into our store trying to buy a cigar, we're not going to sell it to you. You need to be 21. And we actually get a good amount of guest complaints every week over stuff like that. But that doesn't go with our core values. It doesn't it doesn't resonate well with us.
Mm.
So it's decisions that are made because of our thinking of, we want to have a safe, friendly family environment, and we're actually gonna do it. We're gonna put our culture and safety and our families over profits.
Mm.
And it's a lot easier to do that when you're privately held and you can look very long term, as
Yeah.
opposed to being a big publicly traded corporation that needs to hit quarterly earnings. We don't have to do that.
Mm.
We're allowed to look long term, and that's why you can close 100 bars in 8 years,
Mm.
and that's why you can close 100 stores in 20 years and reopen 30 in different areas that you can build a nicer building.
Mm.
Um, it's a simple reason.
Mm.
We want to create a store and an environment where our friends and our families especially feel comfortable shopping.
Mm.
And that drove the cultural change.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting in terms of you playing the long game,
Mm-hmm.
and also private versus public. And I reflect on that sometimes, as an example in my industry, digital marketing, social media. I watched Facebook and Twitter evolve from 2008 through to 2013, and it was fun. It was really exciting. It was just where people celebrated. Basically, these provided platforms for tribes to thrive globally. And you could hang out with your tribe. It was not restricted by algorithms. It wasn't restricted by making more money than God. And it was fun. And the essence of social media, the soul of social media, started to be slowly frittered away from about 2013 on, because guess what? That's when Facebook went public. It then had to answer to the almighty dollar. And I think Facebook's values and the reason it started, Twitter's maybe in the same boat and along with the others. But I think, the whole social media world is suffered because of it's all about money. It's not about values, despite Mr. Z, saying it is. Google has been much the same. They shared content from people and gave links through. Now they have the snippets and don't even send any traffic to websites. So I think, as a private company, it's great to hear that the values are important instead of just reporting to shareholders that just want to make more dollars. Because I just reflect on this all the time, and it's so good to see you guys. Like, would my wife feel safe going to this store? Are my children going to be okay? I think it's just a fabulous, not experiment in culture, but an example of great culture driven by for the right reasons. And you're playing the long game, and I think that it's to be celebrated. So
Love it.
Yeah. So let's. I think we've explored the culture. I think enough for the moment, and I'm really impressed. And I think you guys are to be congratulated and celebrated. I keep using that word now. For having that longevity, that endurance, and to keep the glue that binds the family and the team, that's your company, together. That's just something to be really proud of, and I'm sure you are. And you're the leader of the glue of the culture because you're in charge of HR. So, and I'm sure you've learned a lot along the way in the last 12 years.
And made a lot of mistakes.
Well, you don't learn from just thinking. You learn from doing, and doing actually ends up requiring mistakes to be made, as long as they're not fatal, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we had a little chat before, and you've and suitable for your generation, you've got a side hustle even though you're running HR. So tell us about this. And that other name for it could be a passion project. So tell me about your side hustle, Charlie.
Sure. So it's funny that my side hustle, and I am a millennial, so I guess I need to call it a side hustle to be cool. Um, it spawned because of my personal family. I mean, everything is just kind of about the family. I've always been kind of a health nut. I'm that guy that's like annoying when it comes to food and lifestyle and all that. Although I try not to be, I just try to, do my own thing. And if people want to ask, I'm happy to talk about it. Um, but I love reading leadership books and nutrition books,
Mhm.
especially nutrition books written by doctors. And I've got three kids. Their ages 7, 5, and 1. So my house is very busy,
Mhm.
but it's super fun. And our first, her name's Vivian, and she's the only girl. The other two are our boys, Finn and Banks. And Vivian, that was the first time I really had real responsibility over someone else, my wife and I. And she was sick a lot. And I finally, after going to the hospital a couple times and asking why, and just being told, "Here's a medication, here's a pill, here's whatever," and doing everything the doctor says, and nothing really helping. I just dove into the literature. I've probably read 40 or 50 books written by doctors, subscribed to a bunch of journals, and listened to more than 1,000 podcasts in the health space.
Wow.
And just it's amazing what kind of information is on podcasts.
Mhm.
And just it's free. It's unbelievable. But figured a lot of things out, made a bunch of dietary changes and lifestyle changes, and now Vivian is 7 years old and a really healthy and fit second grader. And her two little brothers have benefited from, I'll call the experiment on her, because now they've always been great and very healthy. I have my own story too of overcoming poor health, and that's the spawn of the side hustle is my daughter really, and
Mhm.
my wife supporting the venture. Um, so it's kind of all about family. And
Mhm.
now I get to do. I've got a couple of different jobs at ABC that I absolutely love to do. And this side hustle is selling a collagen protein supplement, which is in another space that I absolutely love talking to people about, because really at the end of the day, I just want to help people that truly want to be helped.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of people that say they want to be helped that really don't, and I don't have enough time um,
Mhm.
to deal with that. I want to help the people that want to be helped.
Yep.
So hopefully the people that are listening to this podcast will get a message from my entrepreneurial journey, um, or from starting the business or working in the family business. But on that entrepreneurial note, I mean, the guy who started our company, Jack Holloway, he's an
Mhm.
entrepreneur.
Mhm.
I have that bug in me.
Mhm.
I mean, we're all entrepreneurs in some form or fashion. So again, back to family, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's a common theme which obviously has worked. And I think the cult of individualism is something we've got to take a closer look at. And but it's really hard to turn cultures of countries around, isn't it? And it's hard to turn cultures of a tribe around.
Yeah.
And sometimes that the direction they go becomes embedded and very hard to change. So tell us a little bit about this collagen protein product. I'm fascinated because I take a supplement which is supposedly help my brain think clearer.
Hmm.
Um, it seems to be working because I can still spell and I can still write, so that's really encouraging. Despite having another birthday. So, uh, and I take an interest in health as well.
Yeah.
I maybe have one too many glasses of wine occasionally, which you'd be must be glad to hear about. But I do exercise regularly. I'm a keen cyclist. I wear lycra. Um, I've had a habit of exercise since I was 12, and the rate came from a health problem, which was asthma. Okay. So,
yep.
So obviously what you've been doing with your protein collagen product supplements came from a challenge with your daughter. Tell us a bit about the product and so some of that journey from identifying a problem and you going, well, let's do some research, and what you discovered. I'm quite interested in this because, for me, the blog that I started in 2009 was a side hustle as well, right?
Yeah.
I called it a passion project because I didn't know what a side hustle was until about 3 or 4 years ago. But I do call it a side hustle now. It's still a side hustle. I'm really just having fun. Really all I do is chat to fabulous people like yourself every now and then and share their stories and their gifts with the world and their wisdom. So tell us a bit about what you discovered in research and why it matters.
Absolutely. First off, thank you for the compliment, and it's a pleasure to be speaking to you as well. This is just fun.
Yeah.
So collagen, what is it? It's the most abundant protein in our bodies. When you're looking at someone, you're basically looking at water, gas, and collagen. So it's different than the protein that make up your muscles, your muscular system. It's 1 to 10% of the muscle is collagen, but primarily it's a different form of protein. Collagen is what weaves everything together. So your bones, your tendons, your ligaments, your skin, biggest organ in your body. Collagen actually lines the small intestine. It's what your blood vessels are made of. It's what your eyeballs are made of, especially that white part. There's a lot of it in there. And then of course our hair and our nails. So really there is collagen all over us. And what we found, or rather just through the journey of Vivian, and now as the company, our CB Supplements is the name of the company, and we've been around for almost 3 years now. What we found through our process is that collagen is potentially metabolized completely different than any other protein when you eat it. So when our grandmothers, their diet was a little different than what we eat in today's world. Today's world, we eat boneless, skinless chicken breast that's been baked in air with salt and pepper on it. And I'm not going to get into whether that's good or bad. I'm just going to point out that's popular. Or people are vegan, vegetarian, and they're just not eating meat, which I have a whole nother conversation about that. But we don't eat collagen anymore. If you want to eat collagen, you're going to need to eat a bone-in ribeye. You're going to need to eat the skin off the chicken breast, or maybe your grandmother used to make stock out of the chicken carcass or the bones of the animal. We used to eat the entire animal, and we used to eat the organs and the skin, where in today's world, all we eat is muscle. The cow gets slaughtered, we eat every bit of muscle meat, and then we throw everything else away. So what we're doing is taking the skin and the bones, we're distilling that down into a powder, or we're making the bone broth and then making the bone broth a powder, and that's our supplement. So the body reacts differently when you consume collagen. Your body goes, ooh, these are specific amino acids that are linked together called peptide chain. And the body goes, that's different. That's going to tell us to go fix and make connective tissue. So if you're a big cyclist, maybe you have some arthritis or some joint fatigue in your hips and in your knees or in your shoulders from constantly being in this motion. You consume collagen, the body's going to go fix all that. It's going to go where it needs, where when you eat muscle meat or you take a whey protein supplement, that tells the body go repair and or make muscle tissue. So 2 very different processes, but you need both. If you look at your arm and you see your biceps and your triceps and your forearm, those are 3 very important muscle groups. But what's connecting it all and what's holding it all in place? And that's collagen. And just to touch on another benefit of collagen, one of the big ones that we hear from people, and actually the one that I think served a significant role in Vivian's health turnaround, is the digestive function.
Oh yeah.
So, so collagen is going to help restore digestive health. And why is that important? Because the overwhelming majority of the bacteria that make up your immune system lives in your
Mm.
digestive system.
Yep.
And if that organ is not in good health, you will be taken down by
Mm.
bacterial infections, viruses. It's just the pendulum's going to swing to the bad guys, and that's not good. And that's what was happening with Vivian, and that can resurrect it, or that could manifest itself in in um, in the form of asthma, or in the form of
Mm.
migraines, or in the form of eczema, or you name the disease. It's just most disease is coming from the gut, and it's a result of inflammation. And collagen is a natural anti-inflammatory.
Okay.
It's gonna lower your levels of inflammation, and it will support the rebuilding of the house, and that house being your skeletal system, your joints, your small intestine, everything.
Mm.
So hopefully that wasn't too long of an
No,
answer.
that was excellent. Um, I think I need a box now. Look, I don't have arthritis yet, but I do get aching muscles. I think maybe I don't stretch enough. But the other thing that I have certainly focused on the last couple of years, especially, is the gut health. And I take little things. I don't know how helpful they are, but make sure probiotics. Also, I take apple cider vinegar with the mother in it, which to help the gut. And some of the science that is emerging around gut health today, it's sort of, someone said that your gut is like your second brain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, you have the vagus nerve that goes down your spine, that connects this brain and that brain. I'm pointing to my stomach. It's all connected, and there's a reason why we have that saying, your gut is telling you to turn left. Well, it's because your gut is your second brain, and it's amazing. So if you don't take care of that second brain, it's going to be rough in terms of your quality of life, I think, at least.
Yeah, it's look, I've paid a lot more attention to it. I added to that, one of my other health tactics is intermittent fasting, which is not, I don't call it a diet, it's just a way of eating.
Correct.
And I basically don't eat till about 1 o'clock. In fact, yesterday I got lost in writing or working, and I didn't eat till 1:30, and I hadn't eaten till about, finished eating 8 o'clock the night before, because it allows your body to rest and also break down fats. And so, and you know what also I love about it? It keeps eating really simple. I have to get up in the morning. I have black coffee till about midday. And coffee's been given a bad rap about being unhealthy for you. In fact, it's a superfood. It has been revealed now.
Yes.
I don't have it with any milk or anything, but it's a black coffee. And I guess what? I don't worry about eating in the morning. I can just, get into my day, do my routine. And that includes give myself permission to read something inspirational, like, and some fascinating books like Hero with 1,000 Faces, Joseph Campbell. Then do some meditation, and then go for a walk, and then do some writing, which I love. And then, it's just trying to work out, and you've got to work out what routine works for yourself and what works for your body. The other thing I've discovered as I've got a little older is that your metabolism changes as you grow older. And what worked when you were 20 or 30 doesn't work so much when you're 40, 50. Foods that used to be great for you just don't seem to be working the right way. So, but yeah, it's fascinating with the collagen. So you sell it as a powder, is that right? Or
yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Just we have an unflavored and a couple of flavors too, and unfortunately, we don't ship to Australia. However, funny story. I mean, our website is set up. We can ship to Canada and Mexico.
Right.
But I've shipped a package to Australia before. Um, hopefully there's, I forget his last name, but I know his first name is Chad. So if there's a
Right.
Chad in Australia listening to this, he might be the guy. If if somebody wants to buy a case of product, which is 12 containers, that's Chad inquired, and I handle all of our customer service
Okay.
because I love it. And I just told Chad, I'm like, it's probably going to cost about $400 to ship it to you.
Yeah.
Maybe if we sold you a full case, I'll split the shipping with you.
Yeah.
So that way, like, I'm not looking to make money, but we just want our costs covered.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, send me 6 chocolate and 6 vanilla. So somebody in Australia is taking CB supplements. So go find him. Gosh, that would be something if you were a regular listener to this. That'd be pretty cool.
Well, I think I heard his name mentioned. I think we've only got one Chad in Australia, so I might better track him. It was not a big country, right? So we might better track him down. So
Oh, that's great.
Well, it's great to have a chat. And you, at the beginning, before we hit record here, you said you asked 3 questions and you didn't have an answer for the third one. And I don't know if you've got an answer for it now, but I think the questions where I can't remember, because I say, is what inspired you? What did you learn along the way? And what's your gift you bring back to the world? Well, I think you've shared a couple of gifts. I'm going to tell you what I think you bring back. Number one, I think you bring back the power of family and looking after each other, which has sustained you, especially in the last 12 months. I think you as head of HR at ABC, Fine Spirits and Wine, is, what you guys are giving to the world and to the people that work for you, and also to families, is we've got to respect family more. We've got to respect team more. We've got to look after each other. I think that's what you've revealed to me. And I think that's the gift that, as head of HR for the company, that you brought down the generations and continue to be here nearly 100 years later. I think that's the gift you share with my listeners. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us that you think you've learned along the way, that you'd like our listeners to, I suppose, understand a bit more about? What's a couple of things that you think you'd like to share that you've learned?
Sure. Thank you. You just answered the last question that I was losing sleep over for me. So now I don't have to. That's fantastic. That's a good podcast host right there. And you know what? That's a good teammate. You just helped me out. So that's awesome. But yeah, I think just some parting wisdom from a 34-year-old who is still very much in the beginning of my career, and I'm a career student. I always want to learn. It's just accepting that I really have no clue, and there's always going to be better information, and we can always become better listeners. And I certainly need to still work on my listening skills and taking in advice from the people who have already done it. Had somebody told me that 5, 6, 7 years ago, I'd probably roll my eyes, because you just don't really respect what exactly people do to help lay the foundation for the next generation. But I, for some reason now, that just resonates with me. And, the third generation of our company, of ABC, which is my dad, my uncle, my cousin Chad, his dad John, David, their other siblings, the 2 families, Janet, Cindy, like, they all deserve so much credit. And that's really what I would leave with. The best advice I can give is just tell the generation above you thank you. There's no such thing as telling them that too much, because I certainly didn't say it enough in the earlier years. But they are only trying to help the best way they know how. And if the young entrepreneur can see that, life is going to be so much easier, more fulfilling. The hours won't seem as long, and just everything works better. And again, it starts with that culture that goes against what, especially America, pushes the youth to be individuals. It's collaborate, teamwork, family, do it for each other, and just do it for your family. Do it for your, I don't want to say do it for yourself, but if I say do it for myself, that's because I'm doing it to make my wife and kids proud and to make my family proud. So I'm really doing it for them.
Yep. I think you summed up two important things there. Number one, listen and learn. And I really fully understand that. I'm a life learner. When I left my college degree, that's when the learning really started. The other, and I learned by listening as well a lot, because I went and did a counseling course of 6 months, and guess what? It was all about listening and communication skills. And I learned that changed my life. And the other one is to value family and community. We need to look after each other more. I think, and your company's success and culture is evidence of that. And I think that's to be congratulated and celebrated. And thank you very much for sharing those insights about what a fourth generation successful company looks like and what it needs to do to play the long game and be here 100 years later. I think it's amazing. So thank you very much for sharing your insights. I look forward to hearing about the side hustle basically taking off. And I'm sure you're playing the long game there, and it comes from a true passion. It came out of pain, and guess what? That's where a lot of success comes from. So thank you very much for your time, Charlie. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. And the side hustle, if anybody listening is an importer or a wholesaler in Australia, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. Right? Always, you said always be celebrating, always be selling too, right?
Absolutely. Why not? So how can they contact you? That's what we need to find out too.
Sure. I have a couple of different emails, and I'll give you the easy one to remember, but we can put it in the show notes, I'm sure.
Yep.
It's just my name, Charlie, at cbsupplements.com. And
right.
It's CB for Charlie Bales, because I'm not a marketing guru and I don't know how to name a company. So oops. So yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody. And also, if I can leave you with one more tidbit of advice for everybody out there, do what Jeff's doing. Take care of yourself physically, and then you'll get dividends paid to you later in life. I mean, just invest in your health, and really if there is something to be selfish about, make it your health. I commend you for your investment and everything you're doing. And every young entrepreneur should look at you as a role model and hope to be in the life and health that you're experiencing on this lovely anniversary of your 21st birthday.
Yeah, 3 times. Thanks, Charlie. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks for sharing your insights and wisdom. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, sir.